Back to another lesson of logos and letters. My name is Liam. Let's continue on. Estide kai ho chronos, kai ho topos, ton toiuton. So time and place are of these kinds. What kinds? Let me just get rid of all this. Sunekes, right? Of continuous quantities. So estide kai ho chronos, kai ho topos, ton toiuton. Hogar nun chronos sunaptai pros ton paralleluthota kai ton melonta. Right? So for the now, the present, hogar nun, the now time, the present, connects in regard to the past, paralleluthota kai ton melonta, the future. Okay, so obviously, they have the same concept. We all have the same concept. The now is connecting to the past and the future. It's the conjunction, the meeting point. I do that all the time, don't I? I click it, but I don't actually click it. So you can see here, the conjunction. Does blue and red actually make green? I don't know. Okay, so paralleluthota is like, if you want to learn a bit of Greek, is a participle. It means like having gone by or having passed, or just past as in past. So the past, ton paralleluthota, kai ton melonta, things coming, like it means things coming, but with this neuter sort of article here, it just means the things coming, the future. Palin ho topos ton sunakon esti. Right? Again, place is of the continuous, sunakon. Right? So just looking here for one quick example. Let's say this is the present. This is you and I live in this place and we're witnessing this scene, this festival. And, it's fantastic. And we think about the past. You think about where our civilization came from humble beginnings, right? And, we're thinking about that and we're wondering what the future holds. We're looking at this marvelous display and we're considering all the possibilities of the future. And little do we know that our armies will suffer defeat because they weren't properly controlled and maintained and looked after by those in charge. Okay, so we're here in the now, and it's the joining point, sunaptai, right, of the ton melonta, the future, kai ton paralleluthota, the past, right? So yeah. We don't know what the great deal of the future holds. We do know that it will hold the necessary things. Okay, necessary things have to happen. Okay, you and I can stand here in the present, right here, and look at this, and you can say to me, hey, in the future, I know something for certain. And I look at you and I go, oh, okay, tell me. And you say, numbers will be odd or even. And you know what? You can tell the future because that is necessary. That is actually the case. All right. So anything that's necessary like that, you can say for sure. And we know that that will be the case in the future. Everything else that is contingent relies on like free will and decision making of those sorts, and isn't necessary, but is something that comes about. Those things we cannot say for certain. Okay, we can use probability and different sciences to predict, but we can never be 100%. If we could be 100% about those things, what a strange and weird world we would live in. So let's continue. Right, palinhotopos, location, place, ton sunakon esti. So it's of the continuous types. Topon gar tina ta tu somatos moria katakai. This is an important word, I think. When I read it, I was like, yeah, this is cool. So katakai is like, there are different verbs for it possesses, it restrains, it occupies. But katakai is like, it holds a physical place. It's always used in relation with physical things. I've noticed. Maybe I'm reading too much into it or seeing a false pattern, but katakai means holding a physical place, which is really fitting because we're talking about the body and the parts of the body, right? It holds for some particular, for the particular parts of a body hold a, what? They hold a space, a topon, right? Ha prostina koinon horon sunatai. And these particular parts that we're talking about, in relation to one another, they hold a koinon horon. They meet up. They hold a space, sorry, and they sunaptai meet up at a koinon horon, a common spot, okay? And he mentioned the common spots. I think it was in the last lesson or the lesson before that. And those are places like points, lines, edges, all those sorts of good things. And we see that in three-dimensional shapes. You know, you can ask a child, where does this shape, where does this object meet up? And the child might not really be familiar with that language at all, but their first guess, which is probable, will be a good one. They might point at the vertices of a 3D object and say that's where it meets up. They might point to the vertices, right? Or they might point to the edges, all right, the lines, and that's a proper and good guess. So let's continue. Ukun kai tatu topu moria. Ha katakai hakaston ton tu somatos morion. Proston auton horon sunaptai. Proshon kaeta tu somatos moria. Let's just keep going and then I'll wrap it up. Hosta sunuke san hie kai ho topos. Right, so thus sunake san hie kai ho topos. Continuous, one may say, is place. Proskar henna koinon horon. Right, in regard or in relation to one common point, autu tamoria sunaptai. The parts meet up. Okay, you can see how we're just repeating this phrase here. Tamoria sunaptai. The parts meet up. Why? Because if we go back up here, that was one of the defining features. The bound features, the bound quantities, the discrete quantities, if you remember, they, if you listen to the defining feature here, εκθέσιν, from position, ekonton prosalela tonen autois morion sunesteike. Right, so their positions that they have in regards to one another, they hold, their parts meet up, but tode uk ex ekonton thesin. So there are some that do not hold position. Esti de theorismenon hoion arithmos kai logos. So what do we remember about those ones? They may have parts in relation to each other, and they may have parts not in relation to each other, whatever it is. So you can think of number and 5 and 5 and 3 and 7 of the number 10, right? We looked at that. And what did we notice? That there was no point where they met up. We couldn't say that there was a point where they met. Same with speech. We measure it by syllables, and we can say it has parts like a syllable for speech, you know, and he's speaking about spoken speech, and so am I here. And they come and go, but we can't say that they meet up anywhere. And that was a defining feature of discrete, okay, that we could tell where it began and ended, but we couldn't tell that it had a point it could meet up. And right here, as we're going through this, we're noticing that for place and time and for a line and surfaces and all these things, that they meet up at points. Like he literally says point here, stigmane. And we've also noticed that even time has this conceptually. We have the ton parallelu thota and the ton melonta meeting up at a point. And what is the point? It is the now. All right, conceptually, of course, but it'd be hard to say physically. That's not impossible to talk about, but because it's not an actual physical thing, time, in that sense, it's a measurement of changes in physical things, but we can't really say it holds a position like that. And that's the next thing that we're about to speak about. Some things hold a physical position and others don't. Does number hold a physical position? No. Number can describe things that hold a physical position, but things like surfaces, epiphenaias, they hold, and even epipedos, they hold physical locations. Lines hold physical locations. So that's why they're continuous. They hold positions, right? But in the other ones, the discrete, they don't hold positions. Okay, so the key thing to take away here is that discrete and continuous quantities have very, very distinct differences, and they're very easy to articulate. They're easy to find examples for. If we go back to this, right? Ha katakai, hakaston. So this verb here again, katakai, it restrains, it occupies a physical place. So that's another key difference. Is it a physical body that we're talking about? Is it something that I can touch, see, feel, even hear if you dropped it? I know that sounds strange, or if you lifted it up, or if you interacted with it, could I hear it? We can hear speech, okay, but we stop hearing it the moment that it stops being uttered, okay? But physical objects can be heard for as long as the object persists, as long as it holds space. Ton tu somatos morion, and the body has parts, right? The actual body, tu somatos, and that's not what we mentioned up here. In discrete, we never mentioned a body having parts, right? And obviously that's the case because on one hand, spoken speech doesn't have a body, it's bodiless, and number doesn't have an actual body, okay? It has imitations of it when we have like all those pictures and things that we give to kids that are numbers, like things that they can interact and hold with, and as they look at it, they learn how to write the numbers. I'm sure you know what I mean by that. And of the parts, proston, auton, horon, synaptai, so meeting at a particular point, and we've covered that. Pros hon kaita tu somatos moria, right? So take away from this, tu somatos is the body, right? And the parts of the body. If it has a body, has a physical body, it's in the continuous quantities, and it's going to have parts, and it's going to meet up somewhere. We can say it meets up somewhere. And just finishing off with this part, proskar hena koinon. So it's in common, this place that it meets up. And that's all we need to take away. So we can conceptualize, just to wrap up this thing here, as some things being physical and some things being not physical, and that being a defining feature of the two types of quantities. So if you and I were standing here gazing on this scene again, we've just finished talking about time, I could say, where does the bridge meet up? And you know what I mean by that. So you point at one of the lines there, you could say the parts converge on that like line there, right? It meets up at the line, it meets up at that line, it meets up at one of these vertices, okay, if you include this as being in the bridge. And all those answers make perfect logical sense. And you can say the parts have a relation to one another. Of course they do. Ask any engineer if the parts of a bridge have relation to one another. Ask any anatomist or doctor or surgeon if the parts of a human body have relation to one another, right? Ask any geologist if a canyon wall has relation to one another. Ask any paleontologist if the skeleton of a dinosaur or anything of that sort has relation, if the parts have relation to one another. Ask any volcanologist if the parts of a volcano have relation to one another. And you'll see that there's not only order, but parts where they meet up, okay? And obviously they're going to be continuous quantities. Why? Because they are place. Where is topos? Esi. Chronos, kai topos. So, they're all places, and all different kinds of time are continuous. And obviously they have, time has these parts that meet up in the now, and that's just conceptual though. That's not physical like topos. Although you can, like I mentioned before, you can sort of start a conversation or a line of reasoning, a thesis, is saying that now is physical, the present is physical, and the past, meets up here in this physical place. But the only pushback against that thesis is that the past isn't physical anymore. All right, because even if you say, oh, but what if an archaeologist digs up, uncovers a tomb or uncovers, isn't that no, it's not the past, that's actually that's still the present. All right, that's something from the past in the present, but it's not actually the past. And the same with the future. The future is still immaterial as well. The only real physical thing is the here and now, where things are acting. Where all the things are acting, let's say that is the present. And obviously things aren't acting in the past anymore. The past is gone, right? Parallelu thota, it means having gone by, or bygone, bygone. It's a bygone era, it's past. And ton melonta are the things that are coming. So with the other continuous quantities, all their parts are physical, they're here and now, right? So that is another defining difference about chronos, that it only has one part that's actually physical, and that's the here and now. All right, we might leave it there. It's been quite an abstract lesson, only because this word was involved. Chronos, time. Okay, time's a bit of an abstract one. No, it's probably the easiest of the abstract things to explain. There's been a lot of repeating of points joining up in parts, but hey, look, it's necessary. And as I've said before, I am happy to repeat the same thing in 3 different ways, right? Say the same thing in 3 different ways, if it means that it increases the chances that someone listening will understand it or understand it really well. So maybe they understood it a little bit when I said it the first time, but because I repeated myself in a different way the second time, that person got a really good understanding, or just is able to remember it better. Okay, so thank you for bearing with me there. Hope you've enjoyed this lesson. As always, si semper fortis in opere tuo. My name is Liam, and I'll see you next time.